Step out of the car now.
Officer, this is my car and my home. Please check my ID before proceeding.
I said step out. You're being detained for vehicle theft and resisting arrest.
I am Judge Patricia Williams, a federal judge. Please verify.
Out now.
You know, there are stories that make you mad, and then there are stories that make you question the absolute foundation of the system we live in. We often hear about police misconduct in the abstract. We talk about statistics. We talk about qualified immunity. We talk about bad apples. But every once in a while, a case comes along that is so specific, so egregious, and frankly, so incredibly ironic, that it strips away all the excuses. It forces us to look in the mirror and ask, if this can happen to one of the most powerful people in the federal government, what chance does a regular person have? Today, I want to take you back to a Tuesday afternoon that should have been completely forgettable. We are talking about a day that started with the quiet, dignified rustle of legal briefs and ended with the click of handcuffs that would echo through the entire country. This is the story of federal Judge Patricia Williams. And I don't want to just give you the headline version. I want to take you into the car with her. I want you to feel the humidity of that afternoon. I want you to understand the psychology of the man who pulled her over, and the absolute, spine-chilling calmness of the woman who watched her career collide with a policeman's ego in her own driveway. Let's set the scene properly, because context is everything in a story like this. To understand the magnitude of the disrespect we're about to witness, you have to understand who Patricia Williams is, and I don't mean just her title. I mean the woman herself. At 52 years old, Patricia was the kind of person who didn't believe in shortcuts. She grew up in a neighborhood where the police were not usually seen as friends, but as forces of containment. Her parents were working-class people. Her dad worked in a factory. Her mom cleaned houses, and they drilled one thing into her head: education is the only armor you can wear that they can't take away from you. And she wore that armor well. She clawed her way into Harvard Law School, which, let's be honest, is a club that wasn't exactly built for black women from her background. But she didn't just survive there, she thrived. After law school, she made a choice that is really important for this story. She didn't go chase the millions on Wall Street. She became a prosecutor. For 15 years, she stood on the side of the state. She was the one looking at police reports, working with detectives, putting criminals behind bars. She knew the language of law enforcement better than most cops did. She knew what probable cause actually meant, not just what they taught in the police academy, but what it meant in the crucible of a courtroom. After that, she spent a decade as a defense attorney, seeing the other side, before finally ascending to the federal bench. When you are a federal judge, you are appointed for life. You are vetted by the FBI. Your integrity has to be bulletproof. You are, in many ways, the physical embodiment of the Constitution. So, on this particular Tuesday, around 2:15 p.m., Judge Williams is driving home. She had just finished a grueling session in court, presiding over a complex civil rights lawsuit. Ironic, right? And she was exhausted. She was driving a car that she absolutely adored. It was a black Mercedes-Benz S-Class. Now, I want you to picture this car. It's sleek, it's powerful, it smells like expensive leather and success. She had bought it 6 months ago as a gift to herself for receiving a Distinguished Service Award. Every time she got into that car, it was a reminder of how far she had come. She was driving through her own neighborhood, an area known as the Hills. This is the kind of place with sprawling lawns, old oak trees, and neighbors who actually know each other's names. It's the kind of place you move to when you want to feel safe. But safety is an illusion when you fit a certain description. Enter Officer William Thompson. If Patricia Williams is the protagonist of our story, Thompson is the antagonist, but not in a mustache-twirling villain kind of way. He's almost worse because he's so mundane. He's been on the force for 8 years. He's a guy who feels stuck. He patrols the border between the inner city and the affluent suburbs, a beat that breeds a specific kind of resentment. He spends his days watching people with more money than him live lives he can't afford, and somewhere along the line, that resentment turned into a toxic bias. Thompson's personnel file was a disaster waiting to happen. We're talking about 14 internal complaints in 8 years. That is a staggering number. Most officers go their entire careers with maybe 1 or 2. Thompson had 14, and they all followed a pattern: rudeness, unnecessary aggression, and a tendency to stop minority drivers for flimsy reasons. But because of the way police unions and internal affairs often work, a system famously known as the Blue Wall of Silence, he was still out there, he was still in a uniform, he was still armed, and on this Tuesday, he was bored. He was sitting in his cruiser, watching traffic, when he saw the black Mercedes roll by. Now, let's get into the psychology of what happened next, because this is the moment where policing turned into predation. Thompson didn't see a federal judge. He didn't see a woman coming home from work. He saw a brand new $100,000 car, and he saw a black woman behind the wheel. In his mind, a mind warped by years of unchecked bias, that equation didn't solve. He couldn't reconcile the driver with the vehicle. He didn't think, oh, she must be successful. He thought, she must have stolen it. This is where the investigation, if you can even call it that, went off the rails immediately. Standard Procedure Police 101 says that if you suspect a car is stolen, you run the plate. It takes 5 seconds. You type it into the mobile data terminal, and it tells you everything. If he had done that, the screen would have flashed. Owner, Patricia Williams, nitrogen monoxide warrants, registration valid. But he didn't run the plate. Why? Because he didn't want the facts to ruin his hunch. He wanted the buzz. He wanted the adrenaline rush. So he grabbed his radio and called dispatch, and listened to the wording he used. Because this is crucial, he told dispatch he was following a suspicious vehicle that matched the description of a stolen car from a bolo that's be on the lookout a report earlier that week. Here is the kicker. Their asterisk was asterisk a stolen car report, but it was for a silver Honda Accord. A silver Honda. Judge Williams was in a black Mercedes. Those two cars look nothing alike. One is a practical commuter car. The other is a luxury flagship. Unless Officer Thompson was colorblind and legally blind, there is no way he confused the two. He was lying. He was manufacturing probable cause out of thin air because he wanted to pull her over. So, he starts following her. He doesn't turn on his lights yet. He stalks her. He follows her past the community park, past the library, turning left, then right. Deeper into the residential streets, Judge Williams notices him in her rearview mirror. She's not scared, why would she be? She's the law. She assumes he's patrolling. Maybe she even feels a little reassured that the police are present in her neighborhood. She puts on her turn signal because she follows the law and turns into her driveway. It's a long, paved driveway that leads up to her white colonial house. She pulls up near the garage, puts the car in park, and takes a deep breath. She's home, and that is when all hell breaks loose. Officer Thompson doesn't just pull up to the curb. He swerves his cruiser across the bottom of her driveway, blocking her in. It's a tactical maneuver, something you do when you're cornering a fleeing felon, not a suburban mom. Then, he hits the lights. The red and blue strobe lights start flashing, bouncing off her garage door, shattering the peace of the afternoon. Inside the Mercedes, Judge Williams is confused. She actually checks her dashboard. Asterisk, did I leave a light on? Is my trunk open? Asterisk, she looks at the side mirror and sees Thompson get out of his car. And immediately, her stomach drops, not because she's guilty, but because she has seen this body language 1,000 times in court evidence videos. Thompson isn't walking over to ask a question. He is storming over, his hand is hovering over his gun. His chest is puffed out. He is coming for a fight. She rolls down her window, the glass glides down silently. She expects him to say something like, "Mom, do you know your taillight is out? Or did you see a suspect run through here?" Instead, she gets a scream right in her face. License and registration. Get out of the car. It's not a request. It's an assault. Thompson is screaming at the top of his lungs. He is already at a level 10 on the aggression scale. Judge Williams, utilizing every ounce of discipline she has honed over 30 years in the legal system, keeps her voice level. She removes her glasses. She looks him in the eye. "Officer," she says, "I am in my own driveway. I have just returned from work. Can you please tell me why I am being stopped?" This was the moment Thompson could have saved himself. He could have paused. He could have heard her articulate, educated voice, and thought, asterisk, wait a minute. Asterisk, but to a bully with a badge, a question is an insult. A question is resistance. "I didn't ask you for a speech," he yells, spittle actually hitting the side of her immaculate car. "I said get out of the vehicle. This car is suspected stolen. Get out now or I will drag you out." Stolen, the word hangs in the air. Judge Williams looks at him. She motions to her house. "Officer, this is my home. This is my car. I bought it 6 months ago. If you just check the license plate." "Last warning," Thompson interrupts, his hand gripping the door handle of her car. "Get out." Now, Judge Williams has a choice. She knows the law better than he does. She knows that under the Fourth Amendment, he has no right to order her out without reasonable suspicion, which he doesn't have. She could refuse. She could lock the door and call 911, but she also knows the reality of being black in America. She knows that if she refuses, he might break the window, he might tase her, he might shoot her and claim he feared for his life. And even though she is a federal judge, even though she is powerful in this specific second on this driveway, he has the gun. So, she calculates the risk. She decides that her dignity is worth less than her life. I am complying, she says, narrating her movements so he can't claim she reached for a weapon. I am unbuckling my seatbelt. I am opening the door. I am stepping out. She steps out into the afternoon heat. She is wearing a tailored suit, pearls, and heels. She looks exactly like what she is, a professional woman of high standing. But Thompson is blind to it. He spins her around. He grabs her wrist hard. He twists her arm behind her back with enough force to strain the shoulder. You are under arrest, he growls, for grand theft auto and resisting arrest. The handcuffs clip. 1, 2. Imagine the sensation. Cold steel biting into your skin, the sheer, crushing weight of the humiliation. She is standing in her own driveway, the place where she raises her children, the place where she entertains friends, and she is being shackled like a violent criminal. Officer, she tries one more time, her voice trembling with suppressed rage but still controlled. My name is Patricia Williams. I am a federal judge. My identification is in my purse on the front seat. My commission is signed by the president. You are making a mistake that will cost you your career. And what does Thompson do? Does he pause? Does he check the ID? No, he laughs. He actually scoffs at her. Yeah, right, he sneers, and I'm the chief of police. You people always have a story. Tell it to the judge. The irony of him saying tell it to the judge to an actual judge is so thick you could cut it with a knife. But Thompson is oblivious. He marches her down the driveway. He doesn't walk her. He front marches her. He pushes her head down and shoves her into the back of his patrol car. You know the back of a police car. It's hard plastic. It's cramped. It smells like stale sweat and disinfectant. There are no door handles on the inside. It is a cage. Judge Williams, a woman who earlier that day had bailiffs opening doors for her and lawyers standing up when she entered a room, is now crumpled in the back seat, her knees pressing against the partition. But she isn't crying. That's the thing you have to understand about Patricia Williams. She didn't shed a tear. She went into work mode. She started memorizing details. She looked at his name tag, Thompson *. She looked at the time on the dashboard clock. She noted that he didn't read her Miranda rights. She noted that he didn't secure her vehicle. She was building the file in her head. She was preparing for war. Meanwhile, the neighborhood was waking up. You can't stage a scene like this in a quiet cul-de-sac without attracting attention. Across the street, Mrs. Eleanor Davis, a 70-year-old retired school teacher, was watering her hydrangeas. She saw the whole thing. She saw her neighbor, the lovely Judge Williams, getting manhandled. She dropped her watering can. Mrs. Davis knew exactly who Patricia was. She knew that Patricia was about as likely to steal a car as the Pope was likely to rob a liquor store. She ran inside and grabbed her husband. James, the police are arresting Patricia. You have to do something. James, who was a retired insurance adjuster and knew a thing or two about liability, grabbed his cell phone. He walked out onto his porch. He didn't yell. He just started filming. Down the street, another neighbor, a guy named Mr. Mitchell, was walking his dog. He was closer. He actually walked up to the edge of the driveway. Officer, he called out. Hey, officer. Thompson spun around, his hand going back to his belt. Back off. This is an active crime scene. Officer, look, Mitchell said, pointing to the house. That lady lives here. I've known her for 5 years. That's Judge Williams. I think you're making a big mistake. Now, a rational human being, upon hearing a neighbor vouch for the suspect, might stop and think, hey, maybe I should check the ID now. But Thompson, he was too deep in his own ego. He felt his authority was being challenged, and when an insecure man's authority is challenged, he doubles down. I don't care who you think she is, Thompson screamed at the neighbor. Interfere again and I'll arrest you for obstruction of justice. Get back. He threatened the neighbor. He was threatening everyone. He was like a cornered animal, lashing out at anything that threatened to burst his bubble of self-righteousness. He got back into the driver's seat of his cruiser. He picked up the radio. Dispatch, suspect in custody, uncooperative, claims to be a government official, requesting transport for processing. He sat there, smug, waiting for backup. He thought he had done a good day's work. He thought he was the hero of this movie. He had no idea that in the back seat, staring at the back of his head with eyes that could cut glass, was a woman who was about to dismantle his entire life, piece by piece. And this is where the story shifts, because up until now, it's been a tragedy. But in a few minutes, when the backup arrives specifically, a sergeant who actually has a brain, it's going to turn into a thriller, because the realization is coming. Oh my god, what have you done? Moment is approaching. And trust me, you are going to want to hear exactly how that plays out. So, we left off with Judge Patricia Williams locked in the back of a police cruiser, handcuffed, sitting in her own driveway. Officer Thompson is in the front seat, feeling pretty good about himself, probably thinking about how he is going to write this up in his report to make himself look like a hero who took down a dangerous car thief. He is completely ignoring the neighbors who are filming and shouting that he has got the wrong person. He is ignoring the fact that the stolen car Dosen T even matched the description. He is living in a fantasy world where he is always right, but reality has a way of crashing in, and in this case, reality arrived in the form of Sergeant David Morrison. About 10 minutes after Thompson made the arrest, another cruiser pulled up. This wasn't just another patrol car. This was the supervisor. Sergeant Morrison was a veteran. He had 20 years on the job. He was the kind of cop who had seen it all, and unlike Thompson, he wasn't looking for trouble. He was looking to get through his shift without a lawsuit. Morrison steps out of his vehicle. He sees Thompson's car blocking the driveway. He sees the neighbors on their porches with phones out. He sees the black Mercedes parked perfectly near the garage, and immediately, his cop sense starts tingling. Something doesn't feel right. The scene is too quiet. The car is too nice. The location is too expensive. He walks up to Thompson's window. Thompson rolls it down, giving him a nod. What have we got? Morrison asks, scanning the scene. Got a hit on that stolen vehicle below from this morning, Thompson says, puffed up with pride. Female driver, uncooperative, resisted arrest. Had to cuff her. She's in the back. Morrison frowns. He remembers the bolo, the stolen vehicle. The Honda Accord. Thompson waves a hand dismissively. Yeah, well, the description was a silver sedan. But this is a black sedan. Close enough. Probably got the plate switched or something. She was acting suspicious. Sergeant, real attitude problem. Started giving me some story about being a judge. Morrison freezes. He looks at the Mercedes. It's a $100,000 S-Class. It's not a Honda. It's not silver. He looks at Thompson. She says she's a judge. Yeah, Thompson laughs. Can you believe that? Said she's a federal judge, Judge Williams or something. They'll say anything to get out of cuffs, right? Morrison doesn't laugh. In fact, the blood drains from his face, because unlike Thompson, Morrison knows the district. He knows that Judge Patricia Williams, a very prominent, very powerful federal judge, actually does live in this neighborhood. He's seen her name in the papers. Thompson, Morrison says, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Did you ID her? Well, no, Thompson shrugs. She wouldn't get out of the car fast enough, so I detained her. Her purse is still in the front seat. You arrested a woman in her own driveway, who claims to be a federal judge, and you didn't check her ID. Morrison's voice is rising now. The panic is setting in. Morrison walks over to the Mercedes. He opens the passenger door. He sees the leather purse sitting there. He reaches in and pulls out a wallet. He flips it open, and there it is. The driver's license, Patricia Williams, and right behind it, a heavy, metallic badge that says United States District Judge Morrison stares at the badge. He feels sick, physically sick. He looks at the stolen car. He looks at the house. He looks at the neighbors recording him, and then he looks at the back of Thompson's cruiser. He realizes that his officer has just kidnapped a federal official. He storms back to Thompson's car. He doesn't just walk. He sprints. He rips the back door open. And there she is, Judge Williams. She's sitting uncomfortably, her wrist twisted behind her back, but her face is stone. She looks up at Sergeant Morrison, and she doesn't say help me. She doesn't say I told you so. She says, I am Judge Patricia Williams of the United States District Court. One have been illegally detained for approximately 15 minutes. I am requesting that you remove these handcuffs immediately and provide me with the badge numbers of every officer on this scene. Her voice is ice cold. It cuts right through the humidity. Morrison is scrambling. Ma single quotes am ... Your Honor. I'm so sorry. I am Sergeant Morrison. We are going to get you out of here right now. He pulls Thompson aside. Thompson is still standing there, looking confused. What's going on, Sarge? She's a suspect, you idiot. Morrison hisses at him, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. That asterisk is asterisk a federal judge. The car is asterisk not asterisk stolen. It's her car. You arrested a federal judge in her own driveway because you couldn't tell the difference between a Mercedes and a Honda. Thompson's face goes pale. The arrogance evaporates instantly, replaced by the hollow look of a man watching his pension fly away. But she fit the profile . There is no profile. Morrison yells, "Give me the keys to the cuffs. Now." Morrison goes back to the judge. He leans in, gentle now, terrified. "Your Honor, please turn around. I'm going to take these off. This is a terrible mistake, a misunderstanding." "It is not a misunderstanding, Sergeant." Judge Williams corrects him as the cuffs click open and her hands are freed. She rubs her wrists, looking at the red indentations where the metal bit into her skin. "It is a violation of my Fourth Amendment rights. It is a false arrest. And it is a result of gross incompetence and racial profiling." She steps out of the car. She stands up, brushing the wrinkles from her suit. She is small in stature, but in that moment, she looks 10 feet tall. She looks at Thompson, who is cowering by the hood of his car. "Officer Thompson," she says. She doesn't yell. She uses her courtroom voice, the one that silences lawyers. "You refused to check my identification. You fabricated a reason to stop me. You used excessive force. And you ignored exculpatory evidence provided by witnesses. Do you have anything to say for yourself?" Thompson stammers, I was just doing my job. I thought ... You didn't think." She cuts him off. "That is the problem. You didn't think. You reacted based on what you saw, not what was true." She turns to Sergeant Morrison. "I want his badge number. I want your badge number. I want the incident report number, and I want the name of your chief of police. I will be making a call within the hour." "Yes, Your Honor." "Absolutely, Your Honor. I will have all of that for you." Morrison is practically bowing. He knows this is a catastrophe. Judge Williams walks over to her Mercedes. She retrieves her purse. She doesn't go inside immediately. She walks across the street to Mrs. Davis and Mr. Mitchell, who are still standing there. "Thank you." She tells them, "Thank you for being here. Did you get it on video?" "Yes, Patricia," Mrs. Davis says, her voice shaking. "We got it all." "Good," the judge says. "Do not delete it. Do not give it to the police. Send it to my email." She turns back to the cops. "Get off my property." It was a dismissal. Simple, brutal, final. Morrison practically drags Thompson back to the cruiser. They peel out of there, not with sirens, but in the quiet shame of retreat. Now, you might think the story ends here. The mistake was realized. The judge was released. Everyone goes home. But no, this is where the real machinery of justice starts to turn. Because Judge Williams didn't just go inside and have a glass of wine to calm her nerves. She went inside and went to war. She walked into her study. She didn't call her husband first. She didn't call her friends. She called the United States Attorney for her district. "This is Judge Williams," she said when he picked up. "I need to report a civil rights violation. The victim is me. The perpetrator is the local police department." Within an hour, the phone at the police chief's house was ringing. Chief Rebecca Walsh was having dinner with her family when she got the call from Sergeant Morrison. "Chief," Morrison said, "we have a problem." "A big one." Thompson arrested Judge Williams. "Which Judge Williams?" the chief asked, confused. "The Judge Williams. The federal one, in her driveway. He thought she stole her own car." There was a long silence on the line. The kind of silence where careers go to die. "Tell me you're joking," the chief whispered. "I wish I was," Morrison said. "She's going to sue us, Chief, and she's going to win." The next morning, the fallout was nuclear. Judge Williams didn't show up for work. Instead, she filed a formal complaint, but she didn't just file it with the police department as internal affairs. She knew how that game was played. She filed it with the Department of Justice. She requested a federal investigation into the department as practices. See, this is why you don't mess with a federal judge. She didn't just want to punish Thompson. She realized that if this could happen to her, a woman with power, money, and status, what was happening to the 18-year-old kid driving a beat-up Toyota? What was happening to the nurse coming home from a night shift? She knew that Thompson wasn't a bad apple. He was the product of a rotten tree. The video from Mrs. Davis hit the news cycle 48 hours later. It went viral instantly, millions of views. The image of a black woman in a business suit being handcuffed next to a Mercedes became the picture of the year. The hashtag started trending. #Judge Williams, #driving Willa Black, #fire Thompson. The police department tried to do damage control. They put out a statement saying it was an unfortunate incident and a miscommunication. They tried to spin it as a good faith mistake. Judge Williams wasn't having it. She went on national television. She sat down for an interview, not as a victim, but as an expert witness to her own persecution. It was not a mistake, she told the interviewer. Her eyes clear and sharp. A mistake is forgetting to signal. A mistake is misreading a map. What happened to me was a choice. Officer Thompson chose to ignore the law. He chose to ignore my rights. And he made those choices because he did not see me as a citizen. He saw me as a suspect, and until we fix the culture that teaches officers to see us that way, no one is safe. The lawsuit that followed was a master class. Judge Williams hired the best civil rights attorney in the state, a shark named David Chin. They didn't just sue for emotional distress. They sued for deprivation of civil rights under color of law. They went after the department's training manuals. They subpoenaed Thompson's entire disciplinary history. And that is when the skeletons started falling out of the closet. Remember those 14 complaints against Thompson, the ones the department had ignored? During the discovery phase of the lawsuit, that's when the other side has to show you their cards. Judge Williams' lawyer got hold of them. It turned out Thompson had a history of stopping black drivers at 4 times the rate of white drivers. He had a history of using force in situations where none was needed. And every single time, his supervisors had signed off on it. Within policy, exonerated. This was the smoking gun. It proved that the department knew he was a racist cop and did nothing. It proved that the system was complicit. The city knew they were dead in the water. They tried to settle. They offered her $250,000 to drop the case and sign a non-disclosure agreement. They wanted to buy her silence. Judge Williams laughed at the offer. "I don't need your money," she told her lawyer. "I make a good living. I want change. Tell them I'll settle when Thompson is fired, the chief resigns, and they implement federal oversight for the next 5 years." The city refused. They thought she was bluffing. They thought, asterisk, she's a judge. She won't want to go through a messy public trial, asterisk. They were wrong. She didn't just want a trial. She wanted a public execution of their corruption. She pushed for a jury trial. So, 18 months after the arrest, Officer Thompson found himself in a courtroom again, but this time, he wasn't the one testifying against a criminal, he was the defendant. And sitting in the front row, taking notes, watching his every move, was Judge Patricia Williams. The trial was brutal. Mrs. Davis testified about the aggression she saw. Mr. Mitchell testified about being threatened. Sergeant Morrison, under oath, had to admit that Thompson had violated multiple protocols, and finally, Thompson himself took the stand. It was a disaster. He tried to claim he was fearful. He tried to claim he was protecting the community, but under cross-examination, he fell apart. He couldn't explain why he didn't run the license plate. He couldn't explain why he confused a Honda with a Mercedes. He ended up looking exactly like what he was, a small man with a badge and a bias. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. That's fast. That's we knew he was guilty before lunch fast. They came back with a verdict in favor of Judge Williams, and then came the damages. The jury awarded her $910,000, nearly $1 million. But the money was just the headline. The real victory was in what happened next. The verdict triggered an automatic Department of Justice review. The police chief, Rebecca Walsh, was forced to resign in disgrace for overseeing a department that allowed guys like Thompson to operate. Thompson was fired, obviously, but more than that, he was decertified, meaning he could never be a cop again in that state. His career was over. Judge Williams took that $910,000 check, and do you know what she did with it? She didn't buy a vacation home. She didn't buy another car. She started a legal defense fund for people who couldn't afford lawyers. She started a scholarship for minority students who wanted to go into criminal justice reform. She turned her trauma into a war chest for the next generation. And that, my friends, is the story. It's a story about a bad cop who picked the wrong driver. But it's also a warning. It's a warning that power, unchecked, will always abuse. And it's a reminder that sometimes, the only thing standing between a citizen and a cage is knowing your rights and having the courage to stand your ground, even when there is a gun in your face. Judge Williams is still on the bench today, and rumor has it, every time a police officer comes into her courtroom to testify, they stand a little straighter, they check their facts a little closer. Because they know who she is, they know what she survived. And they know that she's watching.